I see.
I have worked in Apollo or as well as Kothari and other usual places, but sometimes you start getting a feel that you want to do your own things, your own place. So that's why I've made my own hospital, my own workplace.
Papri, time to get ready. It's being live streamed
already. Dr. Roy, that was very interesting.
Thank you, Rita.
I think I lost the video.
Let me just check that it's live or not. Yeah, we are live. Okay. So hello everyone and a very good morning to all of you. Welcome to Sunday Musings by Anubhav Positive Psychology. I am Papri Das, clinical psychologist and the Anubhav team member. We have 5 extremely knowledgeable panelists today. Our topic of discussion is about communication strategies that actually work with teens of today. Adolescent is that developmental phase during which children become adults intellectually, physically, hormonally, and socially. Adolescent is a terminal time full of changes and transformations. The pubertal transitions to adulthood involves both gonadal and behavioral maturation. MRI studies have discovered that myelinogenesis required for proper insulation and effective neurocybernetics continues from childhood, and the brain's region-specific neurocircuitry remains structurally and functionally vulnerable to impulsive sex, food, and sleep habits. The maturation of adolescent brain is also influenced by heredity, environment, and sex hormones, which play a very crucial role in myelination. Furthermore, GABA, that is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, remains under construction, and this might be responsible for immature and impulsive behavior and neurobiological excitement during adolescent life. The adolescent population is highly vulnerable to driving under the influence of alcohol and social maladjustment due to an immature limbic system and prefrontal cortex. Hence, it is of utmost importance to form a healthy relationship with them through effective ways of communication, as adolescence is a time of rapid change, not just for the young person, but for the parents too. So the negative communication is a common cause of chronic conflict during that period of time. But it's also not always easy to recognize the negative communication, and it is difficult to convert those negative communication into the positive ones. So our discussion about the effective communication with the teenagers will help us figure that what are the strategies to be used so that we can help and support the teenagers of today. Now, coming to our first panelist, Ms. Megha Abedin. She's a student of History Honours from Jadavpur University first year, rank holder of CBSE class 10 and 12. Firstly, Megha, I would like to know that why do teenagers feel that they are misunderstood? Over to you, Megha.
Thank you. Well, why do teenagers feel misunderstood? I feel the simple answer is really that they really are misunderstood. Well, this is not the most popular opinion, I know that, but according to me, it is the truth. You see, to an average Indian adult, teenagers are nothing more than a psychological and emotional mess. And Indian parents often have trouble with the fact that their teenage kids might actually be presenting valid viewpoints and arguments during a conversation. And often this negative parental idea leads to a situation where practically every conversation between a teenager and his or her parents turns into some kind of a Mahabharat battle between the Pandavas and Kauravas, where the teenagers are always viewed as the rebellious and evil Kauravas by the parents. And since at this age, teenagers are prone to making generalized assumptions about literally everything. So the next time they're in a conversation with any adult, they have already assumed that I will be misunderstood. Nobody is going to listen to me anyway, since I'm the younger one in this conversation. So coming to the solution, at this age, it is very difficult to control the random thoughts, emotions, and hormones of these teenagers. So I believe that the only way out of this is that parents must, listen to a teenager during a conversation patiently, consider their viewpoints and arguments before jumping to any conclusions. Because, you never know, your little teenager might just turn out to be as smart as Lord Krishna himself. So listen to them more. That's all I have to say.
It was beautifully explained, Megha. Apart from parents, we have seen that peers are sometimes, a point of pressure. So I would like to ask that what are the negative and positive impact of peer pressure on the teenagers, and as well as how can the teenager manage peer pressure?
So peer pressure, big thing. For the older generations out there who have kind of forgotten what peer pressure is or what it feels like, I have a very simple definition to remind them. You see, peer pressure simply means that if a teenager's friends are jumping off the edge of a mountain, there's a 78% chance that the teenager is also going to do the same thing. And this is the part of the story which we cannot change. However, we can control the ending of the story by deciding what lies at the bottom of that mountain. There could be sharp pointed rocks, or there could be a trampoline waiting for us. Any teenager who has friends will feel the pressure of fitting in with their friends. And the type of friends you have will obviously decide whether you will face positive or negative peer pressure. Now, the positive peer pressure, it's a good thing because it will encourage the teenager to be more competitive and successful in his or her field, just so he or she can maintain his or her position or say status in the group. And so the teenager will always want to be better than his or her friends in the group. And this is good for success in life eventually. However, when we talk about negative peer pressure may actually lead a teen towards a path of all things basically wrong or negative, like drug abuse, alcoholism, and so on and so forth. And in this case, the teen somehow thinks that in order to maintain his or her position in the group, he has to be the ultimate bad guy of the group, if I may say so, the ultimate mafia of the group. And so the type of friends you have really matters, because positive peer pressure has the potential of turning you into something as positive as Barack Obama, and negative peer pressure might just make sure that you are the next Donald Trump. Now, managing peer pressure. Well, if you talk about managing peer pressure, if it's positive peer pressure, then I feel there's no need to manage it. The more, the better. But if we are talking about negative peer pressure, then the simple answer would be that basically the person made a huge mistake in choosing friends. So we have to ensure that we are in the company of angelic people rather than demonic people, and choice matters. And it's not just upon us teenagers, our family too needs to play a part in this and guide our teenagers in selecting the kind of friends they hang out with in the school, in the playground, in the neighborhood, anywhere. Slight supervision is required. And one thing that young adults must learn to do is to have the confidence to say no whenever they think that something's not right, or when they are forced to do something against their wish. It's going to be a difficult choice, and the family needs to stay by the side of the teenager in this case, but ultimately the teenager is going to turn out happy and confident.
Thank you for those beautiful metaphors. It was so well explained, Megha. Apart from the peer pressure and parental pressure, we all know that social media has a lot of role to play. So my next question will be, how important is social media in influencing the self-esteem and body image of the teenagers?
Oh yes, I must say that social media is doing an excellent job in convincing us all that we all look like mini elephants and gorillas compared to the unrealistically beautiful images which we see online. You see, social media sets these certain standards regarding what little girls and boys should look like, the type of body they must have, the way they should talk, the way they should walk, and so on. And since this is the age when teenagers are looking for role models in their lives, social media stars, influencers, and glamour icons tend to take that place. And these youngsters, they just try to be like their models and have that perfect image, often forgetting or not realizing that these pictures which we see on Facebook or Instagram are actually photoshopped and are not real. And when you try to reach these bizarre standards, teens often develop eating disorders, often starving themselves to achieve their goals. And this is absolutely not good for their health. This is a grave problem of today, with technology developing and all, social media developing. So in order to combat this, the society as a whole needs to stress on the importance of self-love, and that each individual is beautiful in his or her own right. And parents have a major role to play in this, since no teenager must feel left out, unwanted, or just not perfect enough. And what's more important, on a teenager's part, they must realize that being good looking does not mean looking like, say, Salman Khan in Dabang, or like Kareena Kapoor in Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Because we should never forget that the likes of Rishi Kapoor, Uttam Kumar, Hema Malini, or Madhubala, they did not have any ideal bodies. And guess what? They are all legends today, people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megha, for your beautiful and wonderful inputs. Now, I would like to come to our second panelist, Mrs. Kasturi Choudhury, a parent management consultant specializing in strategic planning and organization building. Ma'am, could you please shed some light about what problems does a teenager face with their parents?
Thank you, Papri. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you are.
So I'm here in the role of a parent, and I have huge experience of 2 children only. But I think parenthood is one of the most rewarding roles in my life, despite having, other roles. So teenage is a time when, it's a very bewildering phase, very exciting stage, where a very biddable, manageable child is becoming a semi-adult and having views which don't always match with the parents. And the problems that teenagers have with their parents, that the parents become unrecognizable, they become strangers from the earlier loving, cooing, stage when they were not so, having opinions. So they're yelling at them, they're correcting them, they're talking down at them, dictating and drawing boundaries, rules, regulations. And most of it is, as Megha had mentioned, about choice of friends, too much partying, usage of electronics, maybe trying out alcohol or worse, not studying enough, not supposedly having a goal in life, making too many demands for things and objects, and generally being very different from the way the parents see themselves. Or sometimes I feel, despite being a parent, we parents forget how we were as teenagers. And we have this, kind of image of a very saintly person who always got 100 on 100 and never did anything wrong. So that further, the teenager says, gosh, I don't identify with you. Who are you? So we have, as a parent, still I would think teenagers do have enough reason to be irked by these saintly monsters, which are their parents.
Thank you so much for that beautiful explanation, ma'am. Follow to that question, I would like to ask you that how can then parents mend the distance created with the teenagers?
Papri, we parents have to realize that we are not bringing up clones of ourselves. Children are individuals. Teenagers are individuals who are setting their own boundaries, who are understanding what they are all about. So a huge dollop of empathy, openness, lack of judgment, rigidity, lot of sharpness in communication should not be done. There should be consistency in behavior. If you're asking your child that drinking is very bad and you are getting drunk every evening, the child is watching what you're doing and not what you're saying. No sermonizing. You be the role model of your child. I'm not saying that the child is going to follow it in toto, But the, whatever messages we want to give to our children is not verbal. It is by action. And what I believe, and something my mother would tell me, just fill up your children with a lot of love, lot of unconditional love, lot of acceptance. And one last tip as a parent is be completely unshockable. What was shocking 20, 30 years back is blasé now. Today's shocking level is at a different. So don't get, hazed by what your children are telling you. Learn about it, grow with them. So be unshockable. And my only one message is just be loving and accepting. Don't be judgmental.
Thank you so much for those valid inputs. Like the alcohol abuse, just you mentioned, it is a very valid thing. And apart from that, I also believe that parental separation has also some ill effects on the mental health of the teen. So, ma'am, I would like to ask that how parental separation may affect the teen mental health.
Papri, separation, is a reality today. I will never say just stick to a marriage for the children and just be very, very unhappy and dreadful. That is also not a very healthy signal or a message. If the marriage is not working out, whether after 2 years or after 20 or after 40, the individuals do have the right to look for happiness beyond, not being married. But though it is good in a long term, because I think bitter marriages are worse than separation. So though it's good in the long term, in the short term, it is difficult and painful for everybody concerned, including children, because they are not taking the decision. So children react to separation in different ways. Some become very rebellious, angry on the parents. Then they see it some kind of betrayal of, the parenthood, that you got together, you had me, now how the hell are you, separating? And they might want to side with one and be extra critical to the other side, because it's difficult to be balanced in a very conflicted environment. And they may actually want to avoid the home and spend more time with friends, and things that Megha had said, that impulsively try out, whether it's about relationships or a substance, they might want to do that to attract attention or just to handle their, sense of betrayal and bewilderment. And this may lead to dangerous behavior like binge drinking, using drugs, too much sexual promiscuity. And some may actually overcompensate by trying to do very well. That, okay, I'm going to study so well, I'm going to look after my mother or father, whoever's the wrong person in their, perception. And if it comes to separation or divorce, parents should try to keep it as amicable and not make the children a weapon against each other. We should settle the scores with equals, not using them. And if we promise something that I'm going to pick you up at so-and-so time, we keep our obligations and our promises. And remember to be parents and role models. And the last thing I feel is take care of yourself. If you look like a bechara or a bechari or totally, oh, I'm shattered, that is not a good lesson. Through good times, bad times, tell the children, life goes on, man. It's okay. Sometimes up, sometimes down, but life goes on.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you for the beautiful message. Thank you so much. The last question I would like to ask you is about how can parents approach a teen who has just entered into puberty and has started menstruating?
Papri, you don't start talking to the child when he or she has attained puberty. Communication, which is our topic today, is constant, age appropriate. I am not saying you overdose on communication, but at the same time, much before the child is expected to hit puberty, one talks about, the changing physical, whatever is going to happen to them, whether it's menstruation or whatever. Nowadays, children are having their periods pretty early. So there are children in my known to me who have had their periods at 8, 9. So you start the topic even at 7 in an appropriate manner, that how are children born? What is this thing about menstruation? It's not dirty. It's a very, very normal thing. It enables a woman at the right time to have a child. So it's a very important and a nice thing to, it's your body is functioning fine if you're going to have the monthly cycles, and how to keep yourself healthy, etc. The conversation has to start. So by the time the child has the, periods, she's not totally shocked or, totally, though there will be an element of shock, whatever preparation, at least that's my experience, that you may tell a child everything, but when it actually happens, there is an element of, mama, what's happening? I'm bleeding, So that's the time to just, again, embrace with total acceptance. But I feel the answer to your question basically is constant, normalized communication, a conversation. So that's my input.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's really important to normalize the menstruation, especially in our Indian culture. So thank you so much for your inputs, ma'am. Now coming to Ms. Rita Banerjee. She is a senior educator at Carmel High School with over 3 decades of experience and mentor of community service learning project. Ma'am, can you please help us understand about what is the role of school in helping a teen experiencing bullying and body shaming by the peers?
Yes. Hi to everyone. Regarding the role of school in helping a teen experience bullying and body shaming, when it comes to a teacher's notice that there has been bullying going on, we identify who is being bullied. If maybe she's keeping a low profile and she's not behaving her usual self, so maybe seek her out and see why this is happening to her. And the person who is bullying, we'll have to tackle both separately and together. Maybe we'll have to judge according to the situation. But definitely, first, there has to be an understanding and talking about it maybe individually, because I talk as a general teacher and not as a counselor. So if it's happening and I see that she's okay with discussing this problem in general in the class, so we talk about when we teach the subject, human rights, where everybody has a right, so that the message goes down generally in the class, because it's important that children should know what is right and what is wrong. Because, we feel as teachers sometimes, although the view is changing, that it is always academic performance that comes first. But we should remember it is the mental health and it is the happiness quotient. It is how comfortable a child is in class, which affects everything. Her behavior, her academic performance. So that is most important. So it's important that everybody in class knows. And maybe we take on a project on human rights, but they do have it in history and English or any other subject. We can relate it to that. Now, if the problem does not go down, perhaps we also talk about this problem with the person who is bullying and see why she's doing it, because bullies, as we all know, are suffering themselves. They have a problem. That's the reason why they are bullying. So try to understand her and mildly tell her strongly that, well, this is not the right thing you're doing. If the problem does not subside, we could talk to the principal, take it up with her, and with her permission, we could call the parents. Because many a time the problems arise in the home, and a child picks up many things. Her or his behavior is reflective of what is going on in the home. She's picking up, like my 2 other speakers before me, said very wisely that it is values which are picked up. You have to be, because they are taking the parents as their role models at the beginning. But and body shaming, it is people have to understand that it is wrong, and you are belittling that person, and it is a right of everyone to be what they are, because that is how God made them, and not to make them feel ashamed of what they look like, because everybody is beautiful. And we talk to the parents. Ultimately, it is, we have to talk, but not blaming the parents, but trying to understand. So take their help in tackling the problem.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, my next question will be, how can punishment influence the teens in the Indian culture?
Punishment as first, like I said before, it is moral education which is most important, first of all, for a teacher. And it is like Megha and Kasturi both said, that it is empathy, it is understanding. We have to understand why a child is behaving the way she's doing. Is it to draw attention to her? Maybe. So not be judgmental, which Kasturi said. Never, never to be judgmental, never, because each child is a unique person in her own right. And with multiple intelligences, we have new educational theories coming up. So we'll have to be aware of all that. And so not making her feel humiliated in front of her peers, but drawing her out. And again, talking helps a lot in resolving issues. And also then again, making her understand what she's done is not quite right, but not by lecturing to her, because teenagers do not like to be lectured. So again, like we do in class when we teach, it is to help the child understand at every stage to use her reasoning and critical thinking. So give her the reason. These are the things that we expect of in a civilized society. This is how we are expected to behave, so that we can be happy if we treat others rightly. Otherwise, it comes back to me. I always say what goes around comes around, and they understand that very well. So making her understand why what she's done is wrong. So go through that, and that's what I see, it helps. And but never, never, never corporal punishment. And again, if that doesn't help in school, accessing the principal and parents. Not blaming parents, but trying to understand parents and see what is happening. And that always helped. And I've seen, something else, that my project, which I've done with a series of batches, that when they go out and see how the poor children are faring, their own age, they become less demanding, they become less abusive, they become more understanding. So it's very, very important for teenagers to learn from, especially in Indian culture, how the other side is faring. What we are doing, what we are asking, what we are demanding is too much, because when we compare with what we have and what others don't have, it's a wide gap. So we have to be fair and just, because that is what helps in life. That is what counts. Critical thinking, yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was beautifully explained. And my next question will be, how can a teacher effectively initiate the communication about sex education with a teenager who comes from an LGBTQ community?
Well, she may come with her own ideas. If she's coming from LGBT community, she's being used to seeing differently, and when she talks about it naturally, and she hears things, what her friends say, and she sees that it's different. And if she's having trouble with understanding that situation, it's important for teachers to come in and say it is all right. And because all things today are accepted, and like Kasturi said, what is accepted today may not have been accepted before, but then life moves on, and that is why we get more civilized, more advanced by being more accepting, less judgmental, and if she has a problem accepting and comparing, to try to convey the message that it's just all right, to make her understand, to give examples, to even maybe indirectly in class, drawing the subject into it and asking the class what they feel and have a debate on it maybe in class. And when she hears her peers, who would absolutely, I bet, would have an advanced knowledge of these things and be more modern than what we were, and never, never, never judge them as a teacher from a different generation, because that's the most important problem children have, adolescents, when we compare and they see that their world is different. And when they hear in a debate, when we have, or maybe have a project about it, maybe, because we in our school, many schools, we have a value education class, and we have such things being discussed. So maybe give them a project to do, have a debate and talk about it openly, and they see that the peers are so accepting about it, talk about literature being written on it, let them read. So let them have an openness, open attitude, and be more healthy in their outlook. I think it would help.
Thank you for bringing out the concept of openness at school, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, my last question for you will be, what is the role of academic performance and achievement expectation on self-esteem of the teenagers?
Oh, that has a great effect, I see online when we are taking classes, there are children who never engage, they are there. And I know they are there because I can see it on the screen that they are there. And I have known these children in school too. And I understand they are not, and sometimes I see them trying to give an answer, but they are just not there to ready enough, because they have been quiet, their achievements have been low compared to their peers. And I think that is the problem. And they have a low self-esteem. Self-esteem is so, so, so important for going forward. And I've seen some girls who are so confident, they are always wanting to answer, because I know that when, they get full marks, they get high marks. But it is very, very important, especially with today's educational psychology and the different theories, multiple intelligences. We must apply that in class, because when we were growing up, the thing was we have to get better in studies, only studies. But today it's a different world. You really don't have to be, competitive and in marks, because you may be good in dance, you may be good in music, you may be an artist, you may be good in drama and acting. So we have multiple intelligences, and a child may be good in maths, and tell this in class. We must convey it, and and children understand that. And I've seen it's easy. And it is we who foist our judgment on them. They never started. So, we are the ones as parents and teachers who say, she's got better marks, why can't you? And that is murderous, yes, but we'll do our best, we'll give our best and show them the method. See, study every day and so on. But that's not the be all and end all of all existence. Self-actualization, people would understand, it's different for different people, but self-actualization comes in different forms. And if they are good in what they have talent in, they can excel. Yes, study, and this is the method, but you don't have to compete in marks and for marks. and let the children know it's okay, it's just all right. Be what you are, be the best in that. And encourage, of course, we in every school has an opportunity, cultural activities, and encourage that child to go up on stage to understand, okay, I'm bad in English, I'm bad in maths, maybe maths, but I'm fantastic. I can come first in drama. Immense. Involve them in projects, involve, like I've seen service learning, which are carried out. They're so good in it. And then they see that, well, they are good in something. And then their achievement grows. I've seen that happening. I've seen that, yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful explanation. It was so encouraging. It was so encouraging. Thank you so much. Coming to our fourth panelist, Dr. Purnendu Roy. He is the chairman and managing director at Orion Entertainment, Genesis Eduventure, Genesis Institute of Management and Technology, Genesis Hospital, Kolkata, founder and trustee member at Genesis Educational and Charitable Trust. Sir, the very first question I would like to ask you is, how important is gender sensitization and what are the ways to implement it? Over to you, sir.
Before I come to the topic, I would like to say that when you speak towards the end, one problem is your previous speakers have spoken a lot of things which you wanted to say. And then you worry, okay, how would you start? But you have an advantage is that I can talk about certain things which I did not agree maybe with Kasturi, Megha or Rita, but they will not get a chance to speak because I'm speaking towards the end. So first coming quickly, one or two things about, like thanks, Megha spoke about Barack Obama and Donald Trump and did not take about local leaders over here in West Bengal, because that's a very sensitive topic I would not want to speak about. Number two is I was very shocked at the statistics. 78% of people will jump from a cliff if they found their friend or because of peer pressure when we were talking about. I studied in JIPMA where it was a very high pressure because 25 students were selected from all over the country. Rest were from different groups. And because of academic pressure, occasionally one or two suicide attempts were there and some had succeeded. Like in IIT, that happens. But I've never heard any institution where after one person managed successfully to hang from the ceiling, all others start hanging from the ceiling. I mean, it's not that bad. Many people can actually understand. But when we talk about gender inequality, I suddenly looked at the panelists and I realized that I was the only male. And Megha, Kasturi, Rita, Deyashini, all were female. Now, how do I fight with Megha that Madhubala was gorgeous? Come on, let some man support me. I mean, I don't know why she was so worried that they did not have a perfect figure. So, but what I wanted to say, I completely agree with Megha that every flower is beautiful. It doesn't matter whether it's a rose or an orchid or a genda. Coming to Kasturi, Kasturi was talking about we should be completely unshockable. We are talking about what we are supposed to do, how we should listen and not give lecture. Don't keep saying don't, or do. I understand, but at the moment we are actually doing that. I wish instead of me talking, I would have had access to teenagers who would ask me questions and I will take live questions from the teenagers. That's what I want to do because I want to equate myself with them. And in the beginning of the seminar, Megha told those who are the senior panelists, thanks for reminding me we are an ancient, like antique piece. But this is just to let you know, when we had our training in medical school 40 years back, my professor had told, before you pass a Ryle's tube down the nose of a patient, each one of us had to pass a Ryle's tube down our nose into our stomach to feel how it feels when a tube is put in so that we develop that empathy for the patient. And that's what we have learned. So every time, just like Kasturi says, that experience as a parent of upbringing, bringing up two kids, I have twin daughters and a son. And each time I always think, as a doctor or as a father or as a person in the society, what I would have wanted if I were in that position. So that's what is empathy, which I agree. And I agree that when it can't go on, life still goes on and you need to separate with respect. Reminded me of the song I Want to Break Free. I'm just trying to bring a little humor, because otherwise, if we quote only statistics and don't come to practical life, you talk about unshockable. I was meeting my friends in America, and he was woken up at 3 o'clock in the night from the local police station and told, please come to the police station. Your son is under arrest over here in possession of drugs. So at 3 o'clock in the night, he will not be shocked, will go and love his son. Yes, we are shocked at many situations, but we need to individualize each situation. How do we deal at that time? Uh, Rita spoke about academic achievements, which cause about a lot of kind of pressure on people. Certain schools, that's why do not give marks and give grades. Now, when I went to the school and asked how my daughter is performing in relation to the other students, and they said that we don't give marks, but the whole world is competitive. So it's important, as Rita correctly says, to show importance that you may not be good in maths, but you are fantastic with music. So that part. Now, coming to your question about gender sensitization, comes from, gender inequality, and from childhood, when in the families they are taught, you are a daughter, you are a son, the teaching starts from there. And I know that in my house, I treated my daughter and son in the same way. And every question they ask, we will have to explain to them. There are many people who want to put their daughter in girls' school. I went to a boys' school. So the debate now is, it's important that they should understand from childhood, as a friend of mine said, that the whole world is a co-educational place. So what's the point of putting your daughter in a girls' school or a son in a boys' school when the whole world is a co-ed? The learning and the education is from these things. Another thing is, when you realize there is a problem, half the problem is solved. The fact that Anubhav as an institution is doing this program, that means we recognize that this is an issue. So now is the time how we can implement, as you said, the gender sensitization. So what we need is, this is one, we are doing it in Zoom, and the next should be an institution like yours. We should visit places. We should tell people that we have the time to talk about it. We should listen how the teenage boys and girls feel discriminated, and then handle the situation and implement what is necessary to implement. And instead of trying to tell them, there should be also need for our education. I think I will want to hear if there is any question answer session later on. So gender sensitization is a very important thing, and we should implement through such seminar and educational level.
Thank you so much, sir. So thank you will be less actually. So my next question will be, what kind of communication strategies will be effective for defined behavior during teenage?
Firstly, we must realize that a child and a teenage and an adult, and for that matter, and a man and women, will have different ways, communications, because they have different understanding of the situation. As I said, like putting the Riles tube down my nose, I can feel that what should be my behavior towards the patient. In the same way, if I ever try to feel, like when I try to give examples from real life, that each time we first need to listen to these teenagers. What do they? Now, unless you come close to them, unless you validate their feeling, and if they're feeling depressed, if I just negate it and say, go back to study, that's not the way. We need to validate, oh, you are feeling depressed. Maybe a lot of it. So we need to equate with them. Let's try to be more practical. We should be able to show them that we trust them, that this feeling what they're having is real. We should not be a dictator. That if the child says, today I don't feel like studying, if we force them, then they are likely to rebel. I will tell Kasturi or other panelists, I remember when my mom every time said that, oh, get back to studies, I used to always say, why would you tell me to study? So that day I never studied. So each day she told me, get back to study. That whole day I did not study, and I used to try to show that I know what I'm supposed to do. You don't tell me what I have to do. So what is a reward and incentive base. So I used to tell, what if I perform well? What will be my reward? So as a parent now, I also do the same thing. So I show them incentive, reward based. You understand what is your timing. Some people are owl, some are hawk. Some people are left-handed. We shouldn't force them that become right-handed. There are people who like to get up early in the morning. There are people who want to study till late night. Try to understand their difficulty and try to have time for them. Time is life. If I have this much time, each moment that I spend for my children, for other people, the time that Megha, Rita, Kasturi, and Deyashini is giving, or I'm giving for Anubhav, we all are actually giving part of our life for a problem which we have recognized that this is a problem. So now on, we will be able to help everybody. And instead of lecturing or being a dictator, we would like, at least I would like, people should come and tell me their problem. And then I will listen. And then we will solve the problem together rather than telling this is what you need to do.
You're absolutely right, sir. But a very last question to you is how to initiate the difficult conversation that is of sex, sexual orientation, drug abuse with the teenagers effectively.
I think we must accept certain reality. The teenagers have access to internet. Whatever we all do today, more or less everybody is watching porn. So please, some of us should not be fooled, like we don't give the phone to the children. They go and watch it with someone else's phone or somewhere else where they have. I had asked one of the student in an American university, obviously I will not mention, that what percentage of people in the hostel are on cannabis, and he was giggling. So I said, tell me, I mean, I'm very friendly because I'm very friendly with my daughter's friends and my son's friends and others. So I said, see, we talk freely. Why can't you tell what percentage? So he still kept smiling, laughing. I said 30, 40, 50, 70. And his answer was 100% of the people in the hostel are on cannabis. Every school now here in Calcutta, there are people who are agents. So we have realized that it is a problem. So if it is a problem, why should we not be able to talk about it? It's not that drugs are bad. Now, before we, as you said, how do we initiate a difficult talk of communication about sex and drug abuse? Did we establish communication with our children? Did we establish that teenagers feel free to talk with us, even normal things? Now, if we start with a difficult topic, they will not converse. So first we should learn how to communicate. And why with teenagers alone? We should learn how to communicate with every age group. If I don't listen to what Kasturi said, when I try to talk with her, she will not talk to me. She said, this fellow only talks and doesn't listen. So in the same way, I think we need to gain that confidence. And communication is such a beautiful thing. It's called active listening, not just looking somewhere else when it's okay, somebody is saying. So however difficult it is, it should start early. Talking about sex, it should start early. Sexual education, importance of, if we try to read books or American or Western books and all, their idea and attitude would be different. Like in the books I was just trying to go through a little bit. In one place, there was a line which was written, we should reassure them that they deserve good sex. They deserve good sex. I do not know how many of us will be able to, like, I'm not very sure. I'm very frank with my children, whether I'll be able to go to my daughter and say, you deserve good sex. You know, like, so what I'm talking about is what is necessary is importance of healthy sexual relationship, talking about sexually transmitted diseases, how unplanned or without protection can cause repentance for the rest of your life. Everybody will try out alcohol or cannabis in school or college, but we should try and discuss, why did you try that? Just for a transient kick, is it that? Or do you have any pathos? Are you trying to run away from something? So if we can tell them that these are the problems that you might face later, and if they get the confidence, then only they will be able to abstain from it. What I personally feel is the most important is get the confidence of the teenager, establish communication in a normal day-to-day life, give time to these people, have one meal every day, whether it's dinner or breakfast or whatever it is. Try to make them feel that you care. Then everything is easy, and each person learn how to handle that situation. Every parent learns. It's just that one should be aware, ready, and accept that this is a problem and we must do something about it. And I would be happy if I actually could get questions from the real problems which the teenagers are facing, then individually we can talk about it. Thank you, Papri. I don't know whether in such a short time I can handle such a difficult topic, because whatever you say, mental issue, there is a survey which has shown 75% of Indian school children have asked that they want to see a counselor. What Anubhav is doing is a great job, and we should reach out to the school and we should make them feel that we are there. Not just occasionally here and there at home, or a school teacher telling that, no, you should not take drugs. We should reach out to them, listen individually in groups and other places, okay? I hope in that 10 minutes before you decide to disconnect and mute me, I think I should end it here.
So it was beautiful, and thank you for sharing your personal experiences with us. And also, sir, I would like to point that you mentioned about active listening and its importance. It was marvelous listening to you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sometimes most of us, even as a teacher, many people will face difficult, embarrassing questions which you do not know how to handle. Children are inquisitive. They have to be handled in a different way. I remember one of my twin daughters, because you said personal, at the age of 10, in a dining table, my two daughters, my son, and in front of my wife, she asked me, Baba, have you ever smooched anybody other than Mama? I do not know how others will handle that question. Neither do I want to go after that what happened. But I'm saying, don't feel embarrassed about a question. One should be able to, just like everybody else, my previous speaker said, be role model. You don't come back drunk and say that don't drink alcohol. You can't lead a life of a partying and coming home late and tell your children that go back to study. So face the question, however embarrassing, and answer them straight. Never say that this is not for you to learn.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, coming to our last but not the least panelist, Ms. Deyashini Paul. She is a counseling psychologist with Child in Need Institute. Ms. Paul, firstly, I would like to ask you about teenage suicide, because we all know that teenage suicide is a horrific truth. So how can it be managed, and is there any helpline number available for them? Over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Papri, and I would like to thank all my panelists. It was wonderful listening to all of you. From all the insights and everything that I collected from you all, I think suicide is a rising issue in our country right now, and the statistics is also rising. As Dr. Roy was saying, that let's not talk about statistics. Okay, if we don't want to talk about statistics, we can see as to what are the causes and how to identify them. So what happens is, due to the pandemic, children are mostly restricted to home and familiar environment. So there's a huge rise in use of mobile phones and isolation and loneliness. So keeping in mind the kind of work that I've been doing, so I get a lot, we run a helpline number, so we get a lot of calls from teenagers, and they come up with issues like I am lonely and I'm very addicted to my mobile phone, and there's a rise in sexual health related concerns. And with this, what happens is, due to the over addiction to mobile phones or laptop or whatever, there's a lot of game addiction. There's a huge rise in porn addiction. There's a rise in helplessness feeling because they don't know what to do with the sexual health related concerns that they are facing. So, and they have no one to talk to. They are scared, they are confused, they are lost, and they call us with varied stories. And the stories are very, I cannot say they are strange or mesmerizing, and I don't know how to term them, because they really come up with it. And you know that they are trying to convey something, but they are making up stories to come to the point. Then you have to really work ahead to ask them as to what is your actual issue, because they don't start talking about the issue in the first or second calls that they make us. And with that, I would really request families at the current situation to be with their child, as we were talking about active listening and parenting and everything. So positive parenting is a very important area that we should try and focus on, because we are always telling our children, like, don't do this, don't do that. There's always a no attached to things. So if we can make it and establish, like, I would appreciate if you could behave in such a way, or I would like if the attitude or your behavior towards the people around you or to the family would be in this and this way, is much appreciated, because instead of telling them what not to do, you're establishing what should be done and also practicing it. So also, since all of you all have really brought your personal lives here, I would also like to say that in my house, we don't have restrictions on what we talk about. So with my father and my mother, it's very open. Anything I have done or I am willing to do in future, we are very open about it. So if I have done something like they're talking about usage of drugs and alcohol and everything. So I remember the first time, I was in such a situation. I was also lost because I was not even a teen then, and I didn't know what to do. I think the first time I ran away from my friend's house because I was very scared. And I came back home and I told my parents that such and such has happened, and I don't want to be in that situation. So my parents, they were very open and they said that you should have been there. It's not like I'm encouraging you to practice it, but you should have been there. You should have observed what is happening, because you are a growing adult. You will face situations. There's no point in running away from any situation. So if we try to educate our children beforehand, as we all were telling, that in schools, in colleges, and at home, if we try to establish that listening bond. And how do we establish that listening bond is going to come from narrating personal stories. So our parents have also gone through these many phases. They have not just directly become parents, right? So they have also encountered their first time drinks and their first time use of a drug, or whatever that situation may be. So if you try and share that experience with your children, maybe they will also be able to relate with you. And that's how they can start opening up with you slowly. I think it's not going to be an easy affair. Maybe they listen to you for the first few times, and then slowly they can be encouraged to talk about. And not like, এই তুই আজকে বাইরে গেছিলিস বন্ধুদের সাথে কি খেয়ে এসেছিস? So don't question them. Let them come and tell you. Give them that space to come and talk to you. So to prevent the suicide or to manage the suicide, the first thing that I would like to tell all my viewers is that if a person is attempting suicide and they complete it, so it's a completion of suicide. It's not a crime, so we can't say that they have like they have committed suicide. It's not a crime. So completed suicide is the correct term if a person is attempting and they are not with us anymore. And if they have attempted and they are still surviving, so it's an attempt of suicide. So let us not make it a crime, because individuals who go through the process are genuinely facing difficulties. And the red flags are always out there, even in school, even in college, even at home. They start isolating themselves. They start giving away of their personal things and possessions. Maybe they start writing notes. So diary writing is something that we often hear that we are encouraged to do, journaling. But one thing also we should understand, that just because you're encouraging your child to journal does not mean you're going to sit back and read that journal. That is their own space to express. You are not supposed to invade that space. Okay, so that is there, but also you might be faced with questions like, your child was writing in the diary. How come you did not notice? You don't need to open the diary to notice. You have to be very, there to notice your child. And as we were talking about mealtime and discussion with parents, so whenever you sit for one meal together, instead of using your phone and eating your own food, maybe we can try and discuss about, maybe if we had a bad day, if a parent comes back home, or if I can take Dr. Roy or Kasturi ma'am or Rita ma'am, and they come back home and they tell their children that we had a really bad day, that I'm in a very bad mood, or like I'm very upset, instead of trying to put up a very happy or gloomy mood and not sharing the struggle that you went through the day. So the moment you share that thing, the people around you also understand identification of emotion. So establishing and understanding the emotions that you're going through and not getting confused between emotions is very important to manage suicide. Because the moment you identify and create the boundary between one emotion and the other, I think you'll be able to deal with your emotions much better, and maybe you'll be able to seek help also.
Thank you so much, Deyashini. But as we are just running out of time, I would like to point a very important question to you, and I would like that please help me to figure out this question, that how to support a teenager who has faced sexual consent manipulation or sexual abuse.
Right. So sexual consent manipulation or sexual abuse. So firstly, I would like to mention two helpline numbers that you were asking me previously. I forgot to mention. For suicide, there is ASRA. It's a Mumbai-based organization, but it's a 24-hour helpline number. AASRA. So if you go to Google and if you type ASRA, so you will get a helpline number that they will reflect, and you can call them and you can talk to them. And there's a Lifeline Foundation in Kolkata, which also supports suicide helpline. And for child, women, youth, young adults facing sexual abuse, we have the child helpline number, that is 1098. We also have the women helpline number. And the 1098, that is the child helpline number, it directly links you with Lal Bazaar after you have reported your issue. So from there, you can take up that issue. But how do youth approach such and sexual abuse? I think the first thing that they need to is, see, once they have gone through the process, they are unable to help themselves. So instead of fearing away and hiding, I think they should seek help. And I don't know how many parents are very willing to take up that issue, because most of the time these sexual abuses happen at home. Once again, referring to the calls that I've been getting, there are elderly people who call, like men in the age group of 25 to 35. I cannot say their age because they constantly keep changing their age every time they call us. But when you listen to their stories and when you go back to the background as to how it started or why it happened, you will see that they have undergone sexual abuse when they were 13 or 14 years of age. I think we all were talking about women going through menstruation, it's a change, and women facing sexual abuse. That is there in the internet. I think we are always talking about it. It's in the paper, and it's a genuine concern. It's an issue. It's a big issue. But equally, there are men facing these concerns and issues, and that is what we forget. And the main, I don't know, I can't say the main cause, or I can't emphasize on anything totally, but it's my perspective, I will say that, you know, abuse or consent manipulation comes from them facing the similar thing in their childhood. So when they were forced and they were manipulated to do something in the name of this is a fun activity, this is a game that we are playing, don't go and tell your mother that you know, something like this is happening between the two of us, and that I'm going to buy you chocolates or I'm going to give you presents. Men, I think, grow up with the idea, and they have enjoyed that because they are in their prime age and they have undergone that. They did not know that it was an abuse. I think they're not even aware of it. They're not even aware of it. And when they grow up being adults, I think somewhere they start wanting that from an elderly woman or from a young woman. And that is when they start manipulating their women in their own circle, maybe saying that this is something you should be doing, or I deserve this because you are a part of the family and this is your responsibility to this pleasure or something of that sort. And coming from abuses that happened between friends, which is a rise in Facebook, you will see people are constantly posting about this. I think over there it is a wrong establishment of boundary. I think it's a very similar situation, like the way you should be establishing boundary at home, you should learn to establish that boundary with your friends too. No one is to be blamed. Both the parties are equally responsible, if I have to say, because none of them know where to draw the line. It maybe just starts with a simple touching and hugging, and it just goes somewhere else, and then you're not even in a position to understand why is it happening to me. Should I stop my friend? He is my friend. Why should he be doing this? Or what should I be doing now? And then it becomes a complete mess. And then they isolate, they cocoon themselves, and they're not able to talk about it. So I think, yes,
you're
we need to establish
right,
that.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I agree with you totally, but I'm really sorry that we are running out of time. So we have come to the end of our program today. Before closing it, I would like to take an opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Purnendu Roy, Ms. Deyashini Paul, Mrs. Rita Banerjee, Mrs. Kaushiki Roy Choudhury, and Ms. Megha Abedin. It was really a great conversation with you all. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I'm very sure that the audience have also enjoyed it. So I have to sign it off for today. So very thank you to all of you and all the audiences out there. Hence, Anubhav Positive Psychology signing off for today. Stay tuned for more informative programs. And in case of any query, do inbox us. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Take care, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anubhav.
Thank you.
Thank
Gained a
you
lot.
very much. Thank you.
I think we should try to put the helpline numbers when we share
Yes.
the
yes,
video
please,
of this.
yes.
It will be helpful.
Definitely. Please share it with me, Deyashini.
Yes, I will
please.
do that.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.